The board, put on the ballot another measure, which was Measure T, and that would extend the Orderly Growth Initiative from that time, 2008, until 2028. And that again was approved by the by the voters of Solano County. So since 1984, Solano County has had this voter-approved process that says what is urban shall be municipal, what is rural should be unincorporated, and there should be no conversion of agricultural lands without a vote of the people. And that's where we stand today. As I mentioned, the current initiative expires December 2028. And so what is being proposed by the applicants for the new city is to change that ordinance, to change the Orderly Growth Initiative to allow their new community to proceed ahead. And I can get into a little more details later after Tom talks a little bit about what's being proposed, what's in the initiative, how the initiative affects folks here in Rio Vista, those types of things. But it's really important. I mean, the county has now for 28 years had this measure in place. What are the policies? Again, the main policy is you can't convert lands that are designated by the general plan or zoning from agriculture to urban development without a vote of the people. But it's protected. Each city, 7 cities in Solano County, to develop its own unique character. We believe it's resulted in less flood risk. It's improved air quality, improved water quality in Solano County by focusing growth within the existing urban areas. It's prevented poorly planned growth and development. But again, and probably most importantly, it's assured the continued preservation of the working farms, the ranchers, the watershed areas between the cities of Solano County. So that's the measure. That's what's in place today. I don't know if you want to continue at this, but you want to make your presentation and then we'll take questions. Okay, so that's what's in measure. That's what's in place today. The Orderly Growth Initiative, and Tom, I think now is going to give a little background on what is proposed, and then I can maybe talk a little bit about what's actually in the initiative. And I'm happy to answer any questions later in terms of other specifics regarding the Orderly Growth Initiative.
Great, thank you, Bob. So here is the plan, all 83 pages, okay? I didn't print it out. They actually gave me a copy, so I would appreciate Rich Lynn, who's running our local office of California, whatever, you know, they're in the old theater building, and he made it a point to tell me he's there to answer questions and he welcomes people to drop by. So anyways, he gave me a copy of the plan, and I've been studying all 83 pages, I will confess. But what I did do is I took the first about 10 pages which really present the meat of what they're promising, other than building this big community. It's a large community that is going to be, as I mentioned, on the north side of Highway 12, where it intersects with Highway 113, and it'll be on either side of 113. The connecting roads, McCormick goes right through there. There's one called Creed Road, I think, that defines the kind of northern boundary. It's going to come as close to us as Azevedo, and there's supposed to be a little buffer in between, small buffer. So anyway, here's what I got from reading they call it purpose and findings. So these are kind of, here's what we're about, okay? And I'm going to go through the points that they make. First of all, they're indicating that the minimum density of this new town will be 20 units per acre. That's pretty dense. I mean, I'm not an urban planner or architect, but I think that's pretty dense, right? It means, multi-unit housing. It's all going to be multi-unit of some kind. They also say what they call their home buyers assistance, $400 million to help people put money down and get into the housing. The housing is intended to be for middle class, affordable for sort of normal working people. So that's number 2. Number 3, they have what they call a Solano Downtown program, where they're going to make funds available in the total amount of $200 million to improve the downtowns of the existing Solano County cities, including Rio Vista. Third, they have, fourth. Jobs guarantee. They are promising in the first iteration, which is up to 50,000 people, 15,000 new jobs that pay at an average, at least 125% of the average income in Solano County. So these are how they define well-paying jobs, okay? So 15,000 new jobs. Educational assistance for Solano residents, $70 million. That's to subsidize people getting higher education and other educational things. There's also a agreement they've worked out with the Travis Air Force Base. There is a group, now I've forgotten, I didn't bring that letter, but I don't know, is Sandy here? Did Sandy person show up? Anyway, she heads up a committee of, it's called the Travis Community Consortium or something like that. They are dedicated to protecting Travis Air Force Base and its relationship with the community. So they're promising to work with them and adding to the buffer around the Air Force Base. Item 8, protect natural habitat, open space, and agricultural land. Committing $30 million to that effort. Too close? Too loud? Away. Can you hear me now?
Much better.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Farther away.
All right, you tell me if you can't hear. There's a speaker in the back, I assume it's working, so that should help. Okay, let's see. Point 9, Rio Vista goodies, new jobs, increase our population, create a Highway 12 bypass, open space between their development and Rio Vista. Okay, that's a promise. Number 10, water supply. That's a biggie, right? Okay, well, they have a whole section on how they're going to do that. From what I read, I heard that they wanted to tap into the, what is it called? Northern,
Yeah.
Northern Aqueduct, North Bay Aqueduct, which serves the cities basically on the highway or 80 corridor. And then, of course, there's also groundwater. I don't think they're getting access to that aqueduct, right? There was an effort to do that. So they're talking about groundwater and recycling, but it's a little vague. And obviously that's a big problem for them to figure out. Highway improvements. Okay, so one of the things they're going to do is build what they call a bypass around their new community, so that when we go to Fairfield, we don't have to go right through the middle of everything, but go get around it. That's one of the improvements. They talk about schools, building new schools. That's number 12. 13. Oh, here it is. Smart growth guarantee. Promise payouts equal. Okay, here's a really important part. See all that money? It adds up to, I think I total up $700 million. How's that going to be paid out? Well, they're going to key it to the development. As they build more housing and the population grows, every year they report to the county on what the population is, and then they do this calculation, percentage of, blah, 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 and they will fund these various things that they promised at that percentage level. And so as they grow, they pay out more. That's the idea. It's not all paid out in a lump sum. Okay, let's see. Oh, well, they have number 14. Demonstrates sustainability and economic viability in this kind of development.
Recording in progress.
And so you know what they're really trying to do here? It's very reminiscent. If you've all ever been to European cities, okay, Rome, Paris, for cities like that, yeah, they're walkable. There's amenities within easy distance, and if you've ever been walking around in Europe, you walk everywhere, right? You get lots of exercise, so they're kind of. So they're trying to demonstrate that this new way of building California cities is sustainable and economically viable. Okay, number 15, increase tax revenue for everybody. Well, they will. They'll be building houses and there will be property taxes. And they also promise no new taxes on existing Solano residents and cities. Okay? All right, so what? Then we go to the next section where they call enforceable voter guarantees. So then they go back and they relist them all. What are we going to guarantee? Not everything. And I noted one of the things that was missing is that 20 units per acre, that's not in there, not in the guarantee. Another one that wasn't in there is all the nice things for Rio Vista. That's not in there. So that's kind of a quick take on the way that the initiative is structured in terms of the goodies. Now, and then they have another list of things that they call voter intents. What is that? Is it enforceable? I think not. Okay, so a lot of these things are called, they reduce it to the voters intend this or that, blah, blah, blah. The only thing that I would sort of take more seriously are the things that are in the, that are enforceable in the list that I mentioned. 10 of them, leaving off certain ones. Okay. Then, of course, the bulk about how they're gonna build this new city, and it goes on and on and on. It's all gonna be amendments to the existing general plan. Okay? You wanna add anything, Bob?
Yeah, if I could just. Thanks, Tom. I just want to add a couple of things to what's in the 83 pages. First of all, I think it's important to understand, it's our understanding that Flannery, they have purchased close to 60,000 acres. What they're proposing is to change the general plan through a vote of the people and the zoning for 18,600 acres, plus an additional 700 acres, which is a open space buffer between the new community and Rio Vista. What they're proposing within that 18,600 acres, what is referred to as the build-out. When that build-out occurs, who knows? But the build-out is up to 160,000 housing units, a population of 400,000 residents, and 95 million square feet of commercial industrial uses.
Oh my God.
So that's the ultimate build-out. Whether we'll all be here or not, I don't know. But that's what they're proposing. 400,000 people pretty much doubles the population of Solano County. The other things, a couple quick things. As Tom mentioned, the guarantees that they speak about as part of the initiative are not guarantees. What they have to do, and I don't want to get too nitty-gritty, and if there's some questions, we can go into detail. They have to put together what's called a development agreement with Solano County. By law, they cannot do the development agreement through the initiative process. So, as Tom indicated, most of what the initiative says is it is the intent of the voters. Well, that's great. But if the initiative passes and the developers sit down with the members of the Board of Supervisors, we don't really know for sure what they will end up negotiating. And that's for me, one of the real scary parts. The other thing that's important to understand is what the initiative does do. It changes the general plan and the zoning on those 18,600 acres. So even if the initiative passes, and for some reason Flannery does not get a development agreement, they still own 18,600 acres, which they can develop with some type of residential commercial development. And I've done a little land use planning in the past, and my experience tells me the real value is when you take property that's shown on a general plan and zoning as agriculture, and you rezone it to urban development, that's where the profit goes, because the value of that land goes up. And so no matter what happens with the development agreement, if in fact the initiative passes, those general plan changes and zoning changes take place. The other thing I just wanted to mention is the thing about the transportation improvements. And they do talk about both State Route 12 and Highway 113. I guess you all are more familiar than anybody what it has taken in the years past to make improvements to State Route 12, to make improvements to the bridge across the river, the Sacramento River. There were no guarantees there. Somehow, somebody is going to have to pay for those roadway improvements. And I guess it's going to come from the state of California and the federal government. The other thing that's interesting is in the 83 pages, there's no mention of Interstate 80. And I don't know how many of you go to Interstate 80 and then try to get to Sacramento on a Friday night to go skiing, or, in my view, to go to San Francisco to go to a San Francisco Giants World Series game. But the thought of whether it's 50,000 additional people or 400,000 additional people makes it a little bit scary there. So those are a couple things that couple of the concerns that I have regarding the initiative. Thanks.
Excuse me, can you repeat the build-out inclusions? Those 3 or 4.
Okay, what the initiative does, there's a section in the initiative that puts what's called the anticipated development capacity. And the anticipated development capacity is between 40,000 to 160,000 housing units, 100,000 to 400,000 residents, and 25 million to 90 million square feet of non-residential development. And that's on 18,600 acres.
Thank you.
Thanks. One of the things that the proponents take great pains to do is to distinguish what they're attempting from the more typical suburban sprawl. I mean, that was what everybody identifies that as something undesirable. And so their density per acre is a really key part of that, I think, right? Yep. If you're doing, what was it, 20 units per acre, that's pretty dense. And that's not going to be like a typical new suburb. So they do distinguish that. They really do. And if that gets into their development agreement, because everything comes down really to that development agreement, right? And that's up to if this passes, it'll be up to the county to do that. Real good question that somebody raised was, does the county have the capacity to handle all that? I mean, look at this thing. Anyway, let's move on. So the next topic we're going to hear real quickly about is the Solano Together. That's a group that is organized to oppose the initiative, and who's part of that? Or no, wait. I'm sorry. Yeah, Al. Al said he would cover this part.
Okay. Al likes to talk.
Unlike you.
Unlike you. Sit down, Al.
Well, I can do I understand.
I knew when he was a young guy.
Yeah. Anyhow, I'm Al Medvitz, or Albert Medvitz, and my wife, Judy McCormick, and I are farmers out on Montezuma Hills Road. Our house is at the intersection of Amy Road. We farm 3,700 acres. It's all in a conservation easement protected from urban development. Nevertheless, we were out offering outrageous sums of money by flattery, and we turned it down. Unlike some of our neighbors, we haven't been sued. Some of our neighbors who turned it down have been involved in lawsuits. That's a different issue. Okay, when this came up, when the purchases, which began in secret in 6 years ago.
Gentlemen, you need to move the mic a little away from the mouth when you talk.
Yeah. Okay, is that better?
Yes.
Okay, great, sorry. 6 years ago, they started buying the property in secret, and after a few years, they were offering really inflated prices. After a few years, and the low-hanging fruit was they had gotten all the low-hanging fruit, they started meeting resistance. In 5 years after they started, they began suing people who didn't want to sell with various lawsuits. And that began the concerns among many people and the beginnings of what ultimately became the Solano Together Coalition. And that coalition now consists of Orderly Growth Committee, the Greenbelt Alliance, which is a Bay Area advocacy group that advocates for protection of farmland and open space around the county and advocates for compact urban development in existing cities, which is consistent with orderly growth. It also now includes the Center for Biological Diversity, the Sierra Club, Audubon Society, the Farm Bureau, and others, and more than 100 individuals and who are interested. And if you're interested in it, you can check out the website at Solano Together. Just Google Solano Together, and the website will come up, and you can get the details. But basically, it's a group of people organizing around the idea to prevent this initiative from passing. But it's also assertive in what it says should be happening. It's not just negative. So we're going to advocate for what's called smart growth, which is the idea that urban development should be within existing municipalities. But those municipalities, if they need to, can still expand their boundaries, but it has to be contiguous. So you don't get the kind of sprawl that's in Southern California. We're going to support the continued vitality of Solano's agricultural industry and heritage. Now, why that's important, besides the general need, is we face climate change. And in this region, particularly where we grow important foods like cattle, sheep, grains, on soils with just rainwater and not irrigation water, which is scarce, that's going to become more important as time goes on. It doesn't generate a lot of cash value per acre, right? Because it's not irrigated. So instead of using water, you use more land. And water is becoming more scarce, so we have to protect that resource. Another thing about agriculture is that it generates income. Okay, we estimate that out in the Montezuma Hills here, it generates about $25 million gross agricultural product per year without using irrigation water. That income, and we pay taxes. We don't use the same kind of services that happen in the city. So we don't have to worry about fire department, we have volunteers. We do our own water, our own sewage, all that stuff. So it turns out we are a net benefit to the county. Urban areas are not. What urban areas use in services is more expensive than what they generate in taxes. So that's that. Of course, protect the ongoing security of Travis Air Force Base. Promote responsible management of public resources. There's a huge preserve up west of the Jefferson Prairie Preserve. Many of you know about it. It is very sensitive habitat, but it also supports that maintenance of that habitat depends on using grazing methods. So, and it also means protecting that. As I understand, part of the map that I looked at, Jefferson Preserve or the sensitive lands around it, but then they're going to put protections on others. We want to protect the threatened habitat, and we also want to support clean energy production. One thing that's missing in what they have is our windmills, which generate a lot of energy, but they are also consistent with agriculture. Solar energy is not. You can't take the sun energy that goes into the plants take that away and then maintain the production. We are going to advocate for abundant housing for all income levels. But that abundant housing should be within municipal boundaries, near existing transportation centers, where there can be mass transit, where, in fact, like in Rio Vista, we have a really walkable community already. We need more houses close at hand. I should say one thing as well, that Rio Vista, compared to the rest of the Bay Area, has an excess of housing. We need industry and jobs in the vacant industrial parks in all of the cities. You put in a new industrial park, what's going to happen to Rio Vistas or Dixon's? Where's that industry going to go? And there's plenty of vacant land in the existing cities already to have the jobs where there's already housing, and if you adjust that housing, that's the kind of thing to talk about. And finally, we're going to demand transparency and accountability as we go along. Flannery Associates did not reveal their investors for 5 years. And they were buying up land in sensitive places around Travis, and a piece of land up by the Naval Radio Station, up by Dixon, a piece of land by an Air Force transmission station up in Vacaville. It was only until the New York Times outed them that they came out. They began, we understood who the investors are. In all of that process, they had not been transparent. And then, on the basis of agreements they were making with farmers, after they were making sales, they began to sue. So it's kind of like a hostile takeover. So one of the things that needs to be taken into account, especially when you have an 83-page document filled with legalese, is, are they going to be, are they, if they make a commitment to you now, will they turn around later, and if it's not in their interest, come back and deny they made it, or sue the county, or some other sort of thing. So, I mean, that's important. So, basically, I think that's probably a longer summary than you wanted to hear. We can answer other questions about it. I worked with Bob. When Jeannie and I first came back, we got involved with the renewal of the Orderly Growth Initiative in 1994. It's been in existence for more than 40 years, and it's been renewed it's been established and then renewed twice with overwhelming majority. So it's something that's very valuable. And Solano Together is out to protect that history and to protect the county from a new form of sprawl. So, okay. Shall I stay up here?
Yeah, there's a chair. Thank you very much, Alex. One of our own, right?
Yeah.
I married one of your own.
Okay, now we get to the meat of the meeting, which is the discussion. We've kept this very, very simple. We'd like to talk about what are the potential positive impacts of the proposed initiative. And there are plenty. I mean, there's no question. And then we'll turn to the potential negative impacts, and then we'll take general concerns that didn't come out in either of those discussions, and unanswered questions. And then at the end, we'll talk about, should this discussion among us continue, and where should it go and how should that happen, okay? So we'll try to do all of that, and this is where we want you all to really get engaged. And this is also where Lisa is going to be taking notes on your comments, so we have some kind of a record of what came out of this gathering. By the way, the gathering is also being recorded, and that's thanks to our technician here, Chris Armbrust. It'll be up on YouTube. And so if anybody missed it or they want to revisit it, you can go check out the YouTube. Okay. So that's pros, cons, other stuff. I'm putting these discussion guidelines back up here, because this is the time when things may get a little testy. So,
Tom?
yes.
Is there anybody from Flannery here tonight?
Well, there may be, I don't know. I'm not aware of it. I would be surprised if there isn't. I do know that Rich Lynn, who's, our local guy, he's an employee of theirs, and that's, their office at the theater is hidden.
Right.
Yeah,
I was
and
just curious.
and he didn't want to come. Well, for good reasons. He didn't want to be the focus. He also felt that people might feel constrained with him being here. So, okay, so let's. Oh, question. Question or comment? I think you had. I saw you. Oh yeah, right. That's why we have it. The board isn't that long, unfortunately.
Wrap around the chair.
So you'll have to come up towards the front if you want to use the.
I have an extremely soft voice. Can you hear me? Wonderful. My question is the development of California in general is not a brand new thing. And we are all old enough to have seen tremendous development throughout the state. It seems like there are so many developments taking place on farmland. And the growing of crops for the world, not just the United States, is a precious source. Is this not a state issue rather than a county issue? Should we not be having the state talk about what lands can we develop and what lands can we not develop?
Just quickly, land use control in California is done at the local level. It is the people, whether it's within in Solano County, whether it's within the 7 cities or in the unincorporated area, it is the residents who live here in Solano County that control. There is certain state overriding considerations. Some of you may have heard about housing elements and the need to build more affordable housing and those types of things. But the basic land use decisions are made by the folks who live here in this particular county. And that's why, the Orderly Growth Initiative has been looked in other parts of the state as really a forward-looking way for residents to put forth their vote to protect farmlands and open space and direct development to the existing cities.
Okay, thank you, Bob. Let's get back to the topic. I'm hoping to hear from folks who have identified positive things about the proposal. So.
I'm sorry. My name is Deidre Gwyndon. I'm with Trilogy, and I'm not particularly interested in the positive things because right away this group did very negative things to begin with. In my opinion, to force people to sell their land, To force people to sell their land is a very, very negative thing to do. That's number one. The other thing they went about, very secretive, that even our county leaders knew nothing about it. Even our Congress people knew nothing about it. So I'm not really interested in hearing very much positive about it because they say all kinds of wonderful things about, I mean, just what you were saying about making these beautiful European towns where you can walk to anything and do anything, and there's
Okay,
parks.
well, I'm going to interrupt here because this is the time for people to talk about what positive things they see. You do not, so you're out of order.
I do not,
So-
quite right.
Well, I just wanted to say something about the Solano Together. I was hoping to say it first before we move on. So there's actually a meeting, the Solano Together organization. There's a meeting on Sunday at from 12 to 2. And if you go to their website, it's in Tucson City. If you go to their website, you can register to go to that event. Thank you.
Okay, any positive comments? Now, it was not intentional that the people that are sitting up here are like dead set against this initiative. I know that there are people who have a positive view of what is being offered. And if anybody is here, someone in the back, can you want to talk real loud, or can you come up and be heard on a mic?
Maybe people, residences of Rio Vista will have closer access to a hospital.
Absolutely. Yeah, we are all constantly told that the reason we don't have more medical facilities and a doctor in town is that there's not enough, what they say, there's not enough groups. Well, if we see this development right next to us, then there will be enough groups. That is true. It will bring amenities. Okay, so that's one point. Yes, ma'am.
I don't like talking in microphones. This is
Oh,
like my second time. So, is this good?
Yeah.
Okay. So, a positive is they're promising $200 million for the Solano Downtown Fund. Let's make it very clear. Go to section 4 of that initiative, where you will see that that $200 million will be funded slowly. It will start with the first 5,000 or 50,000 houses. Then they will start distributing funds, and that funds will be distributed based on population of each Rio Vista city, which means Vallejo will receive 10 times the Solano downtown funds as Rio Vista. We have the smallest population in the county. We're going to bear the brunt of this development. I also want to point out the negative. The $200 million sounds terrific, right, for building up the downtowns. But please look at the fine print on every one of these points that they're making.
Okay, more positive. Great, Brian.
I just want to,
Come on up. By the way, let me just, Brian Spradley, a lot of you know him, and just a little disclaimer, Brian is on the board of the RioVision, but he's speaking for himself, and he has a very important point of view. He's not speaking for RioVision.
I'm just adding on to that last 200 million. From what I understand, that 200 million isn't to be distributed. It's actually as profit. So that would be something that California or Flannery would use to develop out their own projects within existing cities. It's not like they're going to give funding to organizations or.
No, they are. Read it.
Oh.
Read it.
Well, that was what was told to me from Anders with California Forever. So.
You want to say some more positive things?
No.
I promise you, nobody's going to throw stones or even.
How's that mic?
I guess you could hear me.
Yeah.
I'll say something.
Yeah.
I'll-
Use the mic.
Okay, there you go. I'm not worried about getting arrows in my back as I go out here. What I'm looking at is this, is that all this is up for discussion, right? And thank you for the group up here to bring this forum together. What I would love to see would be, after this meeting, to continue some further discussions. When I read the initiative, I was skeptical, but when I read the initiative, it started slowly to make some sense. Because what we're looking at is really about a 25, 30-year build-out in small phases, right? So if we are vocal enough in Rio Vista with Flannery and the developers to say, we want to be there along the way, we need to build advocacy committees ourselves and get in front of them and say, hey, we want to be involved in the process as actively as we can. Because really, we're phase one, right? They need us to either back them or put them down. And so what I hear from everybody here is really good information about the agriculture, about the building, about everything like that, that is news to me. But it helps me understand a little bit more about the process. It shouldn't be a thing that I look at these people as totally evil. I think one of the things they did, they misstepped by being secretive. They misstepped on purpose or otherwise by suing farmers, which is utterly ridiculous, right? You're suing a community that you want to embrace. So that was completely odd, and I made that comment to Jean specifically, but not to hog the mic here. And I think it could be positive if we are involved in the process, because really, let's look at 20 years from now. If something isn't done, if we're not able to stimulate interest in our community for investors to come in downtown, to build more, whatever it is, to push Rio Vista further, then maybe 20 years from now we'll be exactly where we are. I'm keeping my mind open.
Good, thank you.
Tom, could I say thank you something?
Something positive?
Yeah, it's actually positive in a way. When Desmond Tutu in South Africa was accused of doing bad things when he accepted money to fight apartheid from large corporations who were then regarded as kind of evil. And his response was, I will take money from the devil and sanctify it. I think the issue here, these guys already own a bunch of land, and hopefully this initiative won't pass, but they're still going to own the land. And my suggestion, and I made this, I don't know if it resonated, was if they change their vision from focusing on sprawl, a new town, which is really reminiscent of 1950s California, and not appropriate to the 21st century. If they change, even if they're going to be sustainable and all that, it's still it's a past, it's gone. If they change their vision to, okay, we're going to talk about the county-wide, and not come in with an idea of, we're going to tell you what you need because we're from Silicon Valley and we're really smart and stuff like that. We will help you. We have this money we want to invest. We want to make a profit. We will help you bring industry and build appropriate housing in all of the cities of the county. And that land that we own, we will now focus on building a utopian agrarian environment. So where possible, they could bring in agriculture and increase the productivity and create diversity. If they're open and they can prove their trustworthiness and get over all the suspicion, that would be a really positive thing. But whether that's possible...
That's not what we're voting on.
But that's
Thanks for the positivity.
yeah, well, they have to make
To go in the direction that you're suggesting, first the initiative has to fail.
Yeah, the initiative has to fail. Right.
All right. Yes. Oh, wait a minute, do we have a new hand or something down in school? Yeah, we do, we have some folks in the back. Let me call on them, people who haven't said anything yet. Okay, so the gentleman there raising his hand, yeah, there you go.
Hattie? I got a question. I'm here to get some facts, and social media is not the way to do it. Facebook, Nextdoor, don't go there for your facts, all right? I want to hear from somebody that was bullied, that was forced to sell their property, and why did they sell it?
All right. We have not been forced to sell. We have not been sued. Some of our very near neighbors have been put in that position.
Yeah.
One of the problems, some of them are here. And I'm going to say this before and see if they want to address that. One of the big problems is in these lawsuits, the farmers have been advised by their attorneys not to talk about it.
Not about it.
Not to talk publicly about what the issues are. There's also a great fear in some instances because when they were forced by family pressures and other things to, in this way, become partners with Flannery and lease back the land that was bought, because to stay in business they need that land. They're afraid of backlash. So unless I see a hand willing to talk, I want to provide our neighbors with the safety that they need. Yeah.
Farmers forced to sell their land, or
No,
some willing
no.
to sell it?
No, there were a lot of willing farmers. And there were willing farmers, but there were a lot of willing landowners. There's a difference between the farmers and the landowners.
So willing landowners that were willing to sell.
There were willing landowners and there were willing farmers who felt that the profits that they would get would help them, and some of them had other occupations. So it's not as if they forced everybody. Yeah. Yeah.
My name's Ian Ederson. I'm one of the farmers in the Marvin Hills. Proud to be a farmer. You want me on the bike?
Yeah. Yes. Can I mention the lawsuit?
No.
Okay.
Let me see if the question was correct. Was the question, why did this landowner in Marvin Hills sell? Was that the question?
No, why did they force?
No, maybe repeat the question.
Why did they sell?
Were they forced to
No, I
sell?
said we're all farmers or landowners forced to sell.
Why did they do it?
No, that's not the case. But if you have a lawyer, which we took on a lawyer when we were sued for $500 million, and the attorney tells you this is going to cost you over $1 million, and that's just to get to discovery, you choose to either sell because you don't want to bankrupt your own family. So some families rightfully sold because their attorneys said it's going to cost you $1 million, and there's a lot of families. So no one was forced to sell, but do you want to go into poverty for not selling?
Why were you being sold for sued for $1 billion?
No, $500 million.
Why were you being sued for that?
Ask the people who made that suit. It was through discussing that people colluded.
Talk louder, please.
I'm sorry, someone told me to move it farther away. So I'll talk louder. So I'm just trying to say, for someone who sold, I can't blame them. If you actually possibly go through bankruptcy if you don't sell, what's your options? There are no good options. So I just want, hopefully that answered the question.
But I guess my question was, I wasn't talking about the ones that were in a lawsuit. I was talking about the group of farmers that are landowners that sold willingly, that produced generational wealth for the families. I get it, the lawsuits that hold it as a thing.
Yeah,
but I'm saying we don't want to make it sound like everybody that sold the 60,000 acres sold unwillingly.
Right.
And that was all my point was. It wasn't.
Yeah, I don't want to misrepresent. Clearly, there were many willing sellers.
Sure, and that's all.
Yes, that's true.
So that was all I was trying to get at. There was many willing people that sold their land willingly because of the amount of money they were able to sell it for.
Yes, clearly.
So, yeah.
Yeah, the problem arises when, if you're a minority and you say, no, we don't agree with you, we want to keep our land, then the means that's used to acquire the land then becomes the lawsuit.
What did they sue for?
One of the things, well,
I can answer that.
Well, yeah, I mean, as I understand, I mean, it's been reported, right? Reported. It's a suit against certain landowners for colluding in a conspiracy or an antitrust move.
That's different than they just say, we want the land, we're going to sue you.
Yeah, no, this is like harassment. This is like, you're not going to sell the money, you're not going to cooperate, we're going to give you. So it's a very vengeful kind of thing. That's how I understand it. Yeah, they came up with the cause of action. And the thing is, hey, they've got hundreds of millions of dollars. And what are the farmers they have? So that's the kind of power play that you see. Anyway, we're getting off on, it's an important topic and I'm glad we were able to talk about it. But I do want to hear, and if I don't hear someone get up and say it, positive parts, okay?
Say it.
All right. I mean, already, this gentleman mentioned some things, right? That look at our town of Rio Vista. There are people who have been trying for years, for decades, to bring some more development, economic development, jobs, things that will keep people here, the young people, give them opportunities so they'll stay in the town and help it grow, and have been frustrated at every turn because of city bureaucracy or lack of resources, and just a kind of an attitude. I mean, when I first came to this town 12 years ago, the City Hall had a reputation for being absolutely not. Just no. You want to do something? No, here's why you can't. That is beginning to change, okay? We've got a much more positive city staff now, and so things can happen. What's missing? The money. We want to develop some fancy hotel down on the waterfront. You know, build some really nice, attractive things down there to attract visitors and people who might stay here and spend their money and develop us economically. But we don't have a developer who's willing to do that. No money. And what does California Forever have? Plenty of. So, there are people, and you can look on their website. There's a website where they have, it says the drop-down button is supporters. So they have little testimonials from people all around the county. And I spoke to nobody from Rio. There's 4 people from Rio Vista who add people. And it's mainly having to do with exactly that. Economic development, bringing jobs, bringing affordable housing, and making a nice community. People like that. That's the positive. Okay? Anyone else? Yes, ma'am. Can you come up?
This goes with what you were saying, since Flannery has so much money. If we don't approve the initiative, I spoke to Jan directly at the Fairfield Town Hall meeting, and I asked him what is he going to do if the initiative didn't pass. And he said, well, they own land here, they'll build here. Fine, let them build here, they'll bring their money here. There you go.
I mean, in Rio Vista.
Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. They own a huge block of land, what they call Esper's block, right across from Trilogy.
Can I talk a little bit about the history of Rio Vista development? Okay, when Jeannie and I first returned, Jeannie grew up here, we returned in 1987. And the city was near bankruptcy, very close to bankruptcy. And so the populace elected a mayor and city council that were very pro-development. And it was the same promise. Yeah. We are going to sign these agreements, the development agreements, with these developers, Shea and others, to build Trilogy, to build Homecoming, and actually where the Esperson property is, which remains undeveloped. It was all going to happen within 20 years. And part of that was taking the existing airport and turning that into an industrial park, and working very hard, hiring people to work on developing. And the promise of building housing that's going to provide jobs and the income and the tax base that you need to develop the city never came to fruition. And that's a common story. And the idea, this myth, that if you increase the population, you're going to, then the jobs will come. It's actually the other way around. If you create the jobs, then the population will come, and that's what happened down in San Mateo, that now has huge inflated pricing. Middle class and poor people were driven out because of rising rents, all that kind of stuff. Because they didn't, these people that are now working here, didn't work with the cities and towns down there to build the housing they need. But anyhow, the point is that historically, that promise of building housing will bring jobs of a different industry doesn't work.
Yeah, we do have a lesson of a community not too far from here, Mountain House.
Yeah.
That was a brand new community, plopped down, Tracy.
Yeah, Rio Vista's the same way.
Yeah.
I mean, that was the promise. It was going to get us out of bankruptcy.
So we got a lot of housing built with no jobs. And what do? They all turn into commuters like everybody else, because there's no jobs there. So.
All right, I'll speak.
Oh, good.
So, I'm sure Tom wanted me to speak. My name's Brian Spradling. I'm actually on the board of RioVision. I'm the president of the Rio Vista Downtown Association, which we formed this year. I've been in business for 27 years in Rio Vista as a general contractor. I moved to Rio Vista when I was 10 years old in 1980. In 1980, Rio Vista still had an economic engine that drove it. It was called natural gas. I was at the end of the natural gas and the manufacturing in Rio Vista. So at that time in 1980, there was still Amerada Hess, Chevron, big international energy companies in Rio Vista because of the natural gas production. Those companies created the majority of the jobs in Rio Vista, along with Black Welders Manufacturing. So between the natural gas, which provided jobs for welders, crane operators, Black Welders, so at that time Rio Vista was 4,000 people. And out of that 4,000 people, the majority of the people worked in Rio Vista, lived in Rio Vista, raised their kids in Rio Vista. That was what California Forever is trying to create, a place that you live where you work where you live, you raise your kids here, you're part of community. Well, when the natural gas dried up, that economic engine disappeared from Rio Vista. Manufacturing went outside of Rio Vista, and all of a sudden there's no jobs in Rio Vista. So since the early 90s, when that economic engine disappeared and the manufacturing disappeared and there were no more jobs here, then Rio Vista kind of just became this commuter type town. A reason a lot of people move to Rio Vista is because it's affordable. Let's face it. People move here because you can leave the Bay Area where it's $850,000. You can move to Rio Vista and a house is $550,000. But you got to be willing to commute. So my daughter, who's 26, and my son, who's going to be 21 in May, who's at Chico State, I'm trying to convince my kids to stay in Rio Vista. Like, I try to teach them about community and pride in community and what community is and relationships that you have with people in your community. But a lot of times they look at it and they go, well, so my daughter commutes to Oakland Children's Hospital as a nurse right now. She hops in her car, 5 in the morning, commutes an hour and a half. Why? Because she's trying to make a good wage, but she doesn't want to live in the Bay Area. She loves Rio Vista and wants to live in Rio Vista. But there's no jobs here for young people. There's a lot of people that are here, I know, that live in Rio Vista, grew up in Rio Vista, they still live here. Their kids do not live in Rio Vista. Why? Because there's no jobs, or they see nothing to do here, right? I'm trying to change that by opening up a tap house downtown Rio Vista and a restaurant, because I'm trying to create a place for 20-year-olds, 30-year-olds. Not that I'm against Trilogy, because here's the reality. When Trilogy came to Rio Vista, just like when Al said, when the former mayors and stuff said, hey, we're almost bankrupt, let's let the developers bring in that. And the reality is developments don't bring revenue to a city, right, Al? That's right. It costs more for public works, fire, and police than the tax dollars that Trilogy brings in. So Rio Vista is nobody. We're still $500,000 in deficit right now. There's no revenue coming in from taxes because there's no businesses here. And over the last 40 years, I've just seen everything regress in this town. I've seen businesses die up. When there was 3,500 people here, the businesses were more viable back then than they are today. Because the reality is, people get in their cars and they drive out of town and they shop out of town and they don't support the local businesses. They don't support the local restaurants. I know people that own the restaurants back in the 80s and 90s that had successful businesses. These businesses downtown right now, they're hurting. They don't make very much money to survive. Me and my partner were opening up a tap house. It's not because it's going to be a financial success for us. It's almost like I'm investing into my community, trying to do something. Because about 5 years ago, the opportunity came for me to buy some property in the downtown, and all I've heard my whole life is someday this downtown, someday this waterfront's going to develop out. Well, guess what? At some point, I'm 54 years old. I'm probably one of the youngest people in here, right? I see somebody in the back, maybe younger, right? The average age in Rio Vista is 64 years old. That's nothing against Trilogy. Like I said, when Trilogy happened, we don't want a development here. We're content with 3,500 to 4,000 people. But what happens? Change happens. And we accept it. And it brings good people into the community, right? Tom Sir, everybody serving on Rio Vista. Those are people from Trilogy that I serve with, right? So I just, and like this, I'm open-minded to it. I know they're here for the long haul. They're not just going to disappear. I don't even know if it doesn't pass on the ballot, is there any way that they could change that through a bill or something in government? Because obviously they brought their A-team, which are people that have served on Gavin Newsom's staff, to work for him.
Well, yeah, I've gotten I'm not in my 50s, I wish I was in my 50s. But clearly, when you spend over $1 billion, you're not going to walk away. And I think one of the things we do have to be concerned about, and the gentleman here kind of talked about it, is the possibility that they're going to go, the Flannery people will go to the state legislature and try to get some type of legislation passed that would exempt them from local rules and regulations. and that they would override anything those of us in Solano County has to say. So one of the good things, as Al was mentioning for California Forever, part of the coalition is we do have elected officials. And Congressmember John Garamendi has been outspoken in opposition to both their tactics and to what they're proposing, and he has expressed concerns about the effect on Travis Air Force Base. So as part of California Together, we will continue to work with elected officials at both the state level and the federal level to ensure that they don't bypass what local people have to say.
Yes, ma'am.
I just want to follow up on something that Brian just said about trying to get his children to stay here. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I just want to follow up on something that Brian just said about trying to get his children to stay here. We have a young friend, a young man, who's in his early 30s, and he works here around town, and he would love very much to find somebody to get married to and start a family. And he needs that tap house, and he needs I live in Trilogy, probably not too impossible to believe, but I would love for him to find somebody, and find happiness here in this town. He's not related to me at all. He's just a young man I've met, and he's done some work for us. So I say bravo to Brian and to anybody else who's trying to do some of this development, because we need that. We're never going to get young people to stay here. Who are they staying for? They're not staying for me, except to do a couple jobs for me.
This is just really kind of addressing what you were saying, as well as we appreciate how much you support Rio Vista, but I'd like to find out more in regards to what jobs will be in Rio Vista. I've lived all around the Bay Area my entire life. I was born in Oakland, and I've lived all around here, and I know that, and I lived in this, towards this area for a long time, and there are so many communities that people have to commute to. There is nothing there. And so if they're going to bring in all these jobs, are they going to be in Rio Vista? Or are they going to be at Fairfield? Or are they going to be in other places that aren't going to help us out at all? So that's my question. I want to see I want to see exactly where the funding's going to. And in regards to the comment that was made about Garamendi, and he also was addressing two other things. And I know he's been very outspoken, hallelujah, but he was very concerned about the water. He didn't see anything that said that this was going to happen. Just that, oh, well, ask the state to get us more water. And he also was very concerned about the taxes, because the phrasing of that is, oh, we'll try to do this, or we'll try to do that. And his feeling is that the basic, when push comes to shove, the bulk of the taxes will fall on us. So, I just wanted to add those comments.
Somehow we think that retiring associates are the bad guys and we're the good guys. That might not be all true. They may be good guys this way, this way, this way, that way. Thank you. The idea of building the idyllic town is not a new idea at all. My wife and I were involved in a project in Massachusetts where they wanted to build the ideal town of a town very very similar to Rio Vista. We moved from California to be a part of that town, and we lived there 25 years through the process. I'm not too certain that these people are all bad. They have an incredible list of consultants that they use. I think they're here for the long run, and I think they want to be the people who make money, and also the people who establish an economic revival. We need that. And they've already changed their goals after talking to a lot of you. And I think that it could, again, and you make the comment about not increasing, or not using farmland, but increasing cities. And they're developing the farmland into agriculture. Have they heard that idea? That's a great idea.
What? The proposal of focusing on the cities and preserving the farmland?
Yes.
Yeah, I mentioned it and got a cool reception, but, you know.
I'm not too sure that, you know, it can be a cool reception, but they have to get past a huge hurdle.
They do. And if they don't,
And I think that it involves a discussion with this group and them. Say, all right, we've got things for you. What do you have for us? Why not talk to them? Why not see if they can get somewhere for us?
yeah, at some point, you know, Jeannie and I were talking with former state senator Rose Wolf today. And her advice was, yes, oppose the initiative. It's a bad idea to change it, or to change it. But be prepared to negotiate a solution.
Yeah.
But and that means for Rio Vista to understand what the quid pro quos are. They're offering lots of money, but the implicit agreement is that we would support the project. Well, is there a way to say, listen, that money could do a really lot of good here, but your project's a bad idea. We will help you find an alternative way in the county with all the different cities to achieve Brian's goal, which has been Jeannie's and I long-term goal. When we first came back, Jeannie's father was the CEO and president of the Bank of Rio Vista. And he passed away, and Jeannie succeeded him on the board as chair. And we're always working to develop downtown. And there are some really difficult problems to deal with. One is absentee landlords downtown who are seeking unrealistic profits, things like that. But Brian's right. We have to, you know, we have to have that focus. But there's a quid pro quo. If you want us to accept what you're offering us, then you have to accept how you can best assist not only us, but everybody else in the county.
Win-win.
Make this a better place.
Win-win.
Yeah.
I have some more to add. So absentee landowners, so I'm actually I own some properties in the downtown Rio Vista, and people often say like, well, why don't landowners fix up the buildings, right? Well, the average rent in the downtown Rio Vista is $1 a square foot, okay? So when you could get $1 a square foot for your property, and then you gotta pay taxes on it, insurance, and make a payment on it, you try to find money to reinvest into that property. Pretty impossible. But then again, it's also hard to raise the rents because the existing tenants are barely making it as it is. So if they're barely making it as it is, how do you raise the rent to get money to reinvest into these properties? You've got to get economic development in the downtown. You've got to either become a destination place that people want to come to Rio Vista, or you got to have growth. Okay, so in order to have growth, Rio Vista in 25 years, we went from 4,000 people to 10,000 people. That's 320 people a year. So to go from 10,000 to 20,000 people, that's going to be another 30 years. And to go from 20,000 to 30,000, that's going to be 60 years. So if people are like, oh, well, we need this in Rio Vista and we need that in Rio Vista, well, those things are never going to happen based on a population of 10,000 people. It's a fact. The other thing is developers don't want to come into Rio Vista and build too much. So say like Trilogy, it took 25 years to build it out. So Shea Homes can build in Rio Vista and they sell a house for $500,000. But they can go build in Brentwood and they can sell a house for $800,000 to $900,000, right? What's the profit? $400,000. Why would they want to come to Rio Vista and build in Rio Vista if their profit margin is so low? I'm a builder, I'm trying to develop out things, and it's the same way. If I try to build a house in Rio Vista and it costs $400 a square foot to build a spec house or a custom house. Now tract houses you can build them for cheaper because it's mass production. So if it costs me $600,000 to build a house in Rio Vista, but I can only sell it for $600,000, why would I want to build a house in Rio Vista to try to sell? Right. So same way, as a business owner, I'm looking to go outside. That's why I go to Vacaville. That's why I go to Lodi to build and do work out there, because there's a higher profit margin that's not in Rio Vista. I employ 13 people in my company right now. I can't grow in Rio Vista as it is unless I commute outside of town. I swore growing, as my kids grew up, I wasn't going to do that. I didn't want to go to the Bay Area because I didn't want to commute. I wanted to be able to raise my kids in Rio Vista, drop them off at school, pick them up from school, coach their sports teams, be involved in the community. And I was blessed to be able to do that. My wife is a teacher in Rio Vista. She works 2 blocks from our house. I walk to my office. I walk to jobs around my community. I'm fortunate. But in order to grow, you got to go outside of Rio Vista. There's only so much stuff, especially if you want to develop and build stuff, to do in Rio Vista.
One of the goals that I came here tonight, and I want to try to step back a little bit to Tom's comment about what's good from California Forever, what they bring. And for me, what California Forever brought was a discussion of where we want to go and what our issues are. That discussion has been going on sort of down at ground level, at Foster's, at bars, wherever you get a few people together and you talk about, wow, the opportunities in Rio Vista. There's so much potential in Rio Vista, but it never gets realized. And now we're here, 50 people tonight. I've never seen a crowd this big in Rio Vista talking about one subject. So I want to know tonight, what are the issues? Not what is the issue with California Forever. They bought their 60,000 acres. We're going to vote on whether we will allow them to actually develop that. I want to know is, what do we want as Rio Vista? Because we're sitting on the eastern edge of Solano County. If you want to convince Solano County to do something, you've got to go to Vacaville and to Fairfield. They're sitting on the edge. They're sitting astride Highway 80. A lot of people have probably in Solano County never been to Rio Vista. Yet if you look at what we have here, we have the Sacramento River, beautiful river. We have the Delta. How much do we have that we don't really appreciate? That's one of the concerns I have, is we don't appreciate what we have today, and how can we make it better? And how can we utilize what is given to us by California Forever? As Al said, it's quid pro quo. If they want something from us, they got to give us something. Right. And what do we want from them? How can they help us be a better community? What are the issues that we need to address today, not tomorrow, not 20 years from now. But what are the issues that we need to be addressing today that we can put our energies towards? So that's kind of my question to the group. Thank you.
Can I speak to that, please? I've been standing there in the back for a while. Good evening, everybody. I thought I had some comments that I was going to prepare. I put a little piece on next door about the other elephant in the room, but I won't really touch on too much of that. I'm going to tell you guys a really quick, short story. I'm sorry, hello?
We didn't know who you were.
Oh, I'm sorry, Fred Kogler. I am a frequent contributor to Next Door. Also founded the core Next Door site, so to speak. Formed that group for that community. I was the original core leader. Okay, well anyway. Fred Kogler and his wife Maddie moved to Rio Vista in 1986, April 1986, right on the heels of what Mr. Spradling talked about, the big economic boom that was Rio Vista at that time. And I've lived here that whole time. I've also lived and worked in Rio Vista that whole time. So I'm kind of unique in that respect. In 1986, I was self-employed, hustling canvas out in the Delta. Worked for 25 years for a local business in Rio Vista. And now I'm retired, hustling canvas, and exactly driving to Sausalito to get my business. Rio Vista has become, in this 25 and 35 years, an insulated, isolated community. They just built an entire wall around themselves. We have devolved, because when I moved here, we had one sewer system. I was self-employed. I had no problem paying my bills. Now I'm retired and hustling canvas and dreading the next year because I'm not going to be able to pay my bills. Because we've devolved. We have 2 sewer plants. We've got all kinds of infrastructure that has gotten worse instead of better. So the points that are floating around in the innuendos in the corners are what can Flannery and the California People Forever potentially help us with. Maybe not directly, giving us money or grants or some vague idea about growth, but if they start developing out there, guess what? And they become successful, that's going to drive Rio Vista to revisit how they do things. We have a completely dysfunctional city government. I mean, honestly, I get pretty emotional talking about this stuff. I was a former city council member for almost 2 years. Threw my hands up in the air after watching that behind the closed doors.
Mr. Kogler.
Yeah, sorry.
Can you put the mic to your mouth? I can't
Yeah,
read
I'm
that.
trying not, because I've been told I just boom. So I'm trying not to overwhelm everybody. But, so another example, when I moved to Rio Vista, I didn't know it at the time, but I bought the second oldest house in Rio Vista. I've lived there the whole time. I've never moved. It's an antique Victorian craftsman. I've rebuilt it twice from the ground up virtually. It's a bit of a mess now because times are kind of tough, but we try. I do all my own work, self-employed, I'm a handy guy. And I also understand sewer systems because for 25 years I worked for a company that worked in that business. So I'm really tuned into what Rio Vista does or doesn't do about their water and sewer systems. So the elephant in this room, really, it's fine to just talk about, you're going to derail Flannery. I'll give you another example. In 2005, myself and about 12 other ladies rallied against Solano County to push back biosolids land spread that is conducted by a company called Synagro, residual management company. They got the kind of money that Flannery's throwing around. And you know what? The county can't control them. That's why you have all the biosolids being chucked around the city. If they pushed it back, they made them behave better. But you can still drive around and see them doing it, right? That's what power does. That's what the money, the deep money from Flannery does. Us in Rio Vista, it's It's laughable. You can't fight those kind of people with what kind of budgets and things that we have, you know? The best we can do is kind of like herding cats. You know, they're going to do some of what they're going to do, or all of it. And the best we can do is learn from it.
Recording in progress.
One of the ideas is have them do a more regionalized sewer system, water system that gets our costs down, you know? Because it's all about dilution and division by population. What I'm talking about and making innuendos about, you're going to figure out, because I've been going to the meetings. And you get your bill for your upcoming water and sewer bills, people will be fleeing from Rio Vista. So there is a lot to think about. And it's not just about Flannery. Yeah, sure.
Because you are so well studied on the sewer system and the water treatment system.
Could you speak to me about, you have to come up here over at the end of our line.
Right, because you're very well versed and
Yeah.
you've studied the water systems and the sewer systems.
Right.
So have you read anything or figured out anything about how California Forever, how Flannery plans to bring water to their community? And is there any way that you see that their being next door to us will help with our sewer system and water treatment project?
No, honestly, I haven't, but that's the kind of thing that would be interesting to either discover or to raise as an issue with them, you know? Maybe part of that negotiation with them. I didn't mean to take over the meeting.
I've lived here for going on 7 years, and I moved here from the Bay Area. While it may seem very tempting to hear about all the stuff that they're going to do, what I'm not hearing tonight is what the people who weren't here for a long time moved here for. And I had a friend of mine ask me before I moved here, he goes, what in the world are you going to move to Rio Vista for? That was what he said. And what I told him was, I'm moving to Rio Vista not for what's there. I'm moving to Rio Vista for what's not there. And while it seems like going, hey, California forever, they're going to do this, they're going to do that for us. I lived in San Francisco pretty much like first 40 years. Then I moved to Brentwood, and I saw what growth did to Brentwood. Then I moved to San Bruno. I saw what growth did to San Bruno. And now they have homeless. Now they have, now they have crime. And as much as people will tell you how it's all going to shake out, you're going to get your fair share, how's that worked out so far? So, I mean, everybody's got their own perspective on it. All I'm asking you to do is think about it. And I'm not saying go one way or the other, but maybe slow down the process like somebody else suggested earlier, because it's important. I didn't move here to try to get into a business. I'm good. I retired with a pension from the city and county of San Francisco. Do I want this place to have tons of growth so that it changes so much that I'm going to have some guy sleeping in my doorway or urinating in my bushes outside? No. I like it the way it is. That's all I got to say.
You have a goal tonight, you mentioned it, but I should now, of wrapping this up by 8 o'clock, getting us out of here at some decent hour. So we have, we've come to the point where we need to move it on the agenda. So I'm going to try to do that. But you haven't said anything.
I'll help you move it along. All right, I've been studying that packet right there, and I found a lot of different things, and the verbiage that they use is, one of the things that they guarantee is 15,000 new jobs for 50,000 people. So that's still gonna leave 35,000 people with no jobs. And they keep using the word funding, 400 million funding, scholarship funding, greenbelt funding. In the financial world, funding means provision of capital, a financial source. Follow the money. They are investors. They want their ROI back. They did not spend all this money just to be philanthropists, because they are not. And the
20 units per acre. This new city is 18,600. So they're gonna have industry, they're gonna have sidewalks, they're gonna have roads, they're gonna have parks, they're gonna have schools, and I didn't read anything about a hospital. So, no one ever mentioned anything about a hospital. Even policemen are kind of on the fence. They want you to be, police it yourself, and in time, they might consider having policemen there. And so, if you have 18,600 acres, and then you have industry, you have schools, you have all these other things, that'll leave probably 10,000 acres units per acre for 400,000 people. If you read that, it's going to be 8 stories high. You guys are going to be packed like rats in that place. And then parking, cars. They say this is a community where you're going to live there, you're going to work there. It's like a prison. Because you know what? Walnut Creek, they have walkability. Pleasant Hill, walkability. Good jobs. You can walk to places, but you still have the freedom to drive. Here, you have limited parking. There's going to be a limited amount of vehicles, if any. There's going to probably be taxes on the vehicles because there's going to be such a small amount of footprint for cars in general. And they're also going to be doing the solar. So now they're going to control your power grid. So they are controlling everything. These houses, these units, they're not going to sell it. They're going to rent it out to you. These 400 people, 400,000 people are the commodity. That is where they're going to make their money. This is a business. It's not a government. They want their money. And that is what they're doing. All this investing that they're doing is so they can get a return on their investment. Nothing is going to be given free. It is all going to be funding. When they invest in Vacaville, Fairfield, Benicia, Vallejo, into all those buildings, into their downtown, it is not to give them money to have growth. It is so they can buy a building and they can make money. It is a business, and that is what they are. They're going to be tax exempt because they know how to get rid of taxes. That's what the wealthy do. That's how the wealthy keep getting wealthy. They're going to be outside of this because they are not under the government. They are a business. The new community is a business, and they're going to run it as a business, and everybody in there is going to be their commodity.
What I'd like to do is move it to point 3, which is general concerns and unanswered questions. If we have, and my thought here is, if we as a community have some burning questions to put to these folks, let's try to shake that out now. Good. And I'll give you one. Reading, excuse me, reading on page 5 of their report, they talk about schools, and it's all kind of vague, right? Whether they want an existing school district to expand and cover them, or are they going to create their own school district? What's the story there? And this is a really important topic for us in Rio Vista, because our schools and the whole school district are struggling, really, and needs a lot of work, a lot of funding. So that would be one of my questions. We want more concrete information on what your intentions are about schools for your quote new community. Do we have any other sort of big questions? Yes, this gentleman here, I'll get this.
Hi, my name's Gene, and I live in Trilogy. I moved to Rio Vista about 6 years ago, not that long ago. I moved from Santa Cruz. Can you hear me now? Yes. I moved from Santa Cruz. We used to watch people walk down our street, checking every door to see if it was open, otherwise they ransacked the car. We moved to Rio Vista because it is what it is. It's like, it's nice here. I wrote back to one of my friends, I said, you could fire a cannon down our street and not hit anything. But My big question is, Flannery says they're gonna create all these jobs. Okay, who's gonna get those jobs? The people they're building the houses for. We're not gonna get the jobs. What are they doing for Rio Vista? I'd love to see them put a doctor's on duty here. Provide something to Rio Vista. They don't have to build Rio Vista. There's a lot of businesses that are empty. Maybe they can help us build our town up a little bit, not turn it into San Francisco. Just a doc's on duty here would be great. So you don't have a half-hour ambulance trip to Sutter or Kaiser. I don't know what they're going to give us. I really don't. And they're saying they're providing all these jobs, but they're giving those jobs to the people that live there, not us.
Sorry, my name is Bonnie Locker. I'm a retired architect and I live in Trilogy. And, I worked with developers for a while in Chicago. And the elephant in the room for me is traffic. Yes. What the heck is Rio Vista going to do with another 100,000 cars potentially on Highway 12 and Highway 113? Amen. And no commitment from California Forever for any improvements to any of that. Oh, well, tax revenue. Yeah, in 40 years, maybe we have enough tax revenue to spend the billions of dollars we're going to need for another bridge here in Rio Vista and a 4-lane divide in 12 all the way from 80 to 5 to take care of all that traffic. I actually sent those comments into California Forever on their little questionnaire. I actually got a letter back from Mr. Skromnik. It was, the form letter. Oh, we're building utopia. Why are you so upset? Yes, people, I'm sorry. I had to say that. We're looking at a nightmare of traffic. I mean, if we think we can't get in and out of Rio Vista now when anything happens on, the bridge or 160 or an accident on 12, add another 100,000 cars onto that same stretch of road. We won't even, if you want improved businesses in Rio Vista, you won't even be able to get here. Good luck with that. Sorry, I just had to rant.
Okay, I think that was number 2 point. All right, that's big questions we want to get answered. Yes, ma'am. Oh.
I'll let her go.
There's a really good New York Times article that states that they're trying to move congestion from the Bay Area to here. They're trying to alleviate congestion down there. My question is, I've heard about negotiating with them and working with them. Who would be the party that would hold them accountable and enforce that? It's really great ideas, but who's the project manager and the legal team that would enforce that? The other thing is, there's a lot of meet with your Congress representatives coming up. I recommend people do that. And then the Together Solano meeting on Sunday, there's going to be some Congress people there as well.
So the point was made that
Can you repeat the New York Times article? When was that?
Oh yeah, if you just Google the guy's name, I can't pronounce it, in New York Times, it's a really, really great article, because I was like, who is this guy?
When did it come out?
I think it was January 17th. Thank you so much. Thank you.
People mentioned that the California Forever people may, if they don't get their initiative passed, they go next to the legislature. They're probably already there. Just to point out, we have an open California State Senate seat. There's an election to fill it. So just be aware and what the various candidates may be saying. If they've taken any kind of a position on this.
Christopher Gabaldi has.
Sorry?
Christopher Gabaldi. former mayor of West Sacramento. Yeah. And
What's his
he's
position?
testified, yeah, in the local Senate race, there are a couple of candidates. Christopher Gabalden has been here, if anybody knows the name. He is the former mayor of West Sacramento. He did a wonderful job. Well, I don't want to be too partial about this. But there's another candidate, I think mayor from Vallejo. But I think one of the things to do is to find out what they know and what their positions are on this. And, I will offer my bias to it. But, and I think there's a third candidate from Napa.
She's a city council woman.
Yeah, city council person.
Christopher is opposed to
Is it? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Excuse me, is opposed to what?
Flannery.
Okay.
I assume you mean to the initiative.
So we talk about like whatever issues you have or what things that we would like to see California Forever implement as far as like what Rio Vistans can say, right? Because we go like, does our voice mean anything to them, right? Does it mean anything? Or they just steamroll us, right? So myself, I served on the advisory board for California Forever. Did I use your name? Myself and Lisa, we served on the advisory board for California Forever. We were recommended by Rio Vista officials to represent Rio Vista and serve on their advisory committee. What that meant was we met every Tuesday morning or Tuesday afternoon for 2 months. We got paid a sandwich and a bag of chips during that time to serve 4 hours on a Tuesday because I had to drive to Vacaville or Fairfield to go to these things. To give our input about, the reality is this, is like if I'm going to go, I'm going to sit at the table with somebody and have open discussion because I can either give them my input of what I think is going to be best for Rio Vista, whether that's a green belt or this Rio Vista Parkland area, or build it on the north side of Highway 12 and don't go into Montezuma Hills. And those were some of the things that we listened, we asked questions, and that was all we did as an advisory committee. And so when we say what will they listen to, I don't know. I would serve as that person that if you were like, hey, who's going to represent Rio Vista and who's going to ask them these questions, I'd be willing to do that. Because I feel like I have a relationship with Jan, I have a relationship with Gabriel, the head planner, I have a relationship, I've met Bronson, all these people, I know them, one-on-one conversation with them. If you guys want somebody to represent, I would be the one to represent. I just am at the point like, I don't take sides on it because here's the deal, I can only control the things I can control in life. If that's me investing into my downtown and doing those things in my downtown, that's all I can control. At the end, if this thing passes or it doesn't pass, it doesn't change my life. If it passes, I adapt and figure out what I'm going to do. So if you want some representation, I'd be willing to be that person.
Well, you're running for state thing, That was the issue. The issue is who's the state. Who is the state?
Yeah, I need.
Quick question. So can you find out for us about whether the city is truly going to remain unincorporated, which means that the county will be providing fire and police services?
Yeah, that's their plan, is it's gonna be unincorporated until they incorporate
If the
it.
initiative passes, it's in the unincorporated area. If it fails, then it's not.
So I don't know how many law enforcement officers it will take for a city of 5,000, and then 50,000, 100,000, and 400,000. But if any of you are paying attention, it is very, very difficult to recruit quality law enforcement officers. And a lot of California cities are having to offer incentive bonuses. I think
Huge.
Antioch, which has gone to pot, which is where I'm from, Antioch, Brentwood, Oakley. So I I don't want that here in Rio Vista. I do have one. Okay, just pay attention to the taxes. Your taxes are going to be funding their law enforcement.
Okay, we really didn't get to the question that I need answered, which is, does this discussion continue?
Yes.
Yeah, 3 more hours.
RioVision could convene another community forum, and we can continue the discussion, but I think we've got some good notes here, and I'm wondering, Lisa, if we have framed some questions that we would like to have addressed. Did you catch any of that, or issues, things that we might want to...
Yep. You've got 3 pages worth of questions that were not answered.
Okay. So what we could do, I guess, is call another gathering. It'll probably be a couple of months. We usually meet on the second Monday at 6. So we could try to do that in the work.
Can we get some people from Flannery here?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. Do you want that?
Have those questions go to Flannery.
Well, we had one offer.
Representative.
Brian's going to take it.
I don't really
No, all right, well, we'll work on that and try to pull it together again in another Monday. Yes.
I have one comment for you. We're already trying to get this on the November ballot.
Right.
We don't have a lot of time to put a lot of things together. We're going to act quick one. You do something once every month or something like that.
All right, let me put it this way. If there are some people who want to work on organizing our community, please come up here. I will take a sign and we'll give that to you. So these are people who are willing to put some work into the effort to pull us together. Okay? And I'll put it like that. Name and contact information. Continuing the work. Thank you all for coming. All